Bleacher Report has listed 3 players as trade targets for the New York Knicks this season. Let's talk about it. You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. Appreciate everybody for stopping by as we go over 3 players that Eric Pincus and the Bleacher Report NBA crew have linked to the New York Knicks. We know the Knicks have been in talks with multiple teams this summer about a potential trade for a big man, and Bleacher Report, they listed 3 centers that they could trade for. Let's start with one that has been linked to the Knicks for quite some time, and that is Sir Karl-Anthony Towns, the stretch big of the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's a CAA client. He went to Kentucky. He has a good relationship with Worldwide West. And as long as Karl-Anthony Towns is not a member of the Knicks, he will be linked to the Knicks. This is what Bleacher Report had to say about a potential trade. Quote, "The New York Knicks are loaded with talent at every position, save for center. The combination of Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa is okay, although the former has only topped 59 games once in his past 4 seasons. Towns has been a long-rumored target of Leon Rose and the Knicks and was born about an hour away from Madison Square Garden. A starting lineup of Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby in Towns would truly rival the Boston Celtics for the best in the NBA. And as much as I want to shut down the idea that a Karl-Anthony Towns trade is possible and that it is bad news for the New York Knicks, just can't do that. I actually agree with what they said right there. If you could roll out a lineup of Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, and Karl-Anthony Towns, you can go band for band with the Celtics when they roll out Horford or Porzingis at center with the other 4 good players of Tatum, Brown, Derek White, and Drew Holiday that they have. They want to play 5 out. You had Karl-Anthony Towns. The Knicks could be a legit 5-out team. I'll say it like this. Karl-Anthony Towns may not be a better player than Julius Randle. Definitely not as decorated. Randle, 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA player. But I think the way that Karl-Anthony Towns goes about playing the game of basketball just might fit a little bit better next to the Villanova Knicks and OG Anunoby. Having a center that can step out and consistently shoot north of 38% from downtown is going to make life easier for Jalen Brunson. More room to operate, more space to create. And that pick and pop of Brunson and Porzingis would almost be unstoppable. The thing that's probably going to hang this trade up and maybe make it never actually a logical thing or something that could happen is the contract that Karl-Anthony Towns is on, making $49.2 million this year, 53, then 57, and he has a player option in 2027 and 2028 of $61.1 million. It'd be tough for the Knicks to get up to that $49 million salary. You'd have to trade Julius Randle and also Mitchell Robinson. And the only reason Minnesota would make a trade like this is to get off of some money, right? They're one of the most expensive rosters in the NBA. And if you take on Robinson, you take off Randle, it doesn't change anything, except Randle is potentially going to be a free agent this upcoming offseason, and maybe that makes it attractive for Minnesota. Let's talk Randle and Cat and the differences between the two. I think Cat's just a little bit more skilled. I think he's more comfortable putting the ball on the deck. I think he's more athletic, and I also think he is a better rebounder as well as a better shooter. What is Randle better at? Just being more of a bully, imposing his will. He's got a little bit more dog in him. He can get downhill. He can convert around the basket a little bit more, and I think he's got a better face-up game in that mid-range area, whether he wants to get to that fall-away baseline jumper that he loves, that step-back deep too. And I also think that Julius Randle's a little bit better of a playmaker, but you see the career playoff stats on screen. Randle's make me want to throw up, and I'm actually not too bad, and I don't feel too awful about the way Karl-Anthony Towns has played in the playoffs. I thought he did a pretty good job on Nikola Jokic, especially in that series that they ended up beating the Denver Nuggets team that was trying to go back-to-back. Look, it's really a tough decision, but I'll ask you, if you had to choose one of these guys to be on your team next year, who would it be? I'm going to ride with Randle always, no doubt about it, but I can also admit that it's pretty enticing to have a stretch 5 like Karl-Anthony Towns that can help you match up against the Boston Celtics. I think Randle's the better player. I think Cat might be the better fit. I'd be fine if they made the trade. I'd be fine if they didn't make the trade. Let me know what you think in the comments. Walker Kessler is the next player we're going to talk about on today's show. Kessler is a player that's been linked to the New York Knicks for a couple of times or a couple of weeks now. I mean, a couple of months now throughout this entire summer. It doesn't sound like he's a part of the long-term plans for the Utah Jazz. And Kessler would be a great replacement potentially down the line for Mitchell Robinson. Bleacher Report writes saying Kessler is a completely different player than Towns and will never come close to reaching his offensive talent level, although he's also making $46.3 million less than the four-time All-Star and is the better defender. The 7-footer is an elite rim protector who averaged 8.1 points, 7 boards, 2.5 blocks, and 22.3 minutes while making 65.4% of his shots. We've talked about Kessler a couple of times on this channel, and Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report reported this, saying Utah discussed Kessler previously in a trade, including a stalled conversation with the New York Knicks. Then also writes that Kessler does not seem to be a part of the long-term plans for the Utah Jazz. So we know the Knicks have talked. They've touched base with Danny Ainge in Utah, and I don't think that will be the first time, and I don't think that is the last time that those two will be in communication about a potential trade. You get a true 7'1" guy, 260 pounds, still just 23 years old, and he could be the anchor of your defense for years to come. He is severely limited on the offensive end. He does not produce outside of the paint. He doesn't have the ball handling or the passing ability of Isaiah Hartenstein. But if you're looking for just a rim protector, a guy that can crash the offensive glass and really be that final line of defense behind OG Anunoby, behind Jalen Brunson, and behind some of these other defenders on the Knicks, that is Walker Kessler. I mean, in 74 games in his rookie season, the guy averaged 2.3 blocks per game. Then he upped that in 64 games the next year to 2.4 blocks per game. He is an elite defender, and I think that if he were able to be traded to the New York Knicks, that he could become one of the best centers in the NBA on the defensive side of the floor. That would be a match made in heaven for Tom Thibodeau and Walker Kessler. I think he would learn and grow as a player mentally, but also just continue to become more of a grown man as he is 23 years old. I think it'd be a great trade, but it's always going to come down to what is the price and what would it cost to make a deal like that. The last player that Bleacher Report linked to the Knicks is Jonas Valanciunas, the big man that left the New Orleans Pelicans in free agency to go sign a contract with the Washington Wizards. There's been a lot of talk that the Wizards are going to be looking to trade him once he is trade eligible. We'll find out. Bleacher Report writes, quote, Valanciunas signed a 3-year contract with the Wizards, although his actual time in the nation's capital could be closer to 3 months. The veteran center got his money and will almost certainly be moved to a contender before the February 6th trade deadline. The Knicks could use his rebounding, screening, and toughness either as a starter or backup to Mitchell Robinson. The only way that I would want Valanciunas to be a member of the Knicks is if he is the backup and the starting center remains as Mitchell Robinson, because I do like the yin and yang of those guys. Robinson, rim protector, defender, and a guy that can crash the glass at a level that nobody else in this league can, specifically on the offensive end. Where Jonas Valanciunas can give you more of a scoring punch off the bench. He's a guy throughout his career that is consistently getting you about 14 and 10 every single night. And he can also shoot that three a little bit. He could score from more than outside, just the dunker spot. He can do a little back to the basket game and score in those situations. So you have Robinson, the defender and the offensive rebounder, and then a little bit of a different type of player, an archetype in Valanciunas, who's a little bit more skilled and can space the floor on offense even when the ball is not in his hands. I think it is important to remember that since he did sign that 3-year deal with the Washington Wizards, that Valanciunas cannot be traded until mid-December. I believe it's December 15th. Don't quote me on that. But all players that are signed in free agency or leave their team in free agency, they cannot be dealt until mid-December. So a lot of talk has been made about Valanciunas being on the move. It just would take a little bit longer. Look, I'd be okay with all three of these trades as potential trade targets for the Knicks. But what we like to do here at Chat Sports is gauge the audience. So let me know. If you had to pick one of these three players to make a move for who would it be? And I want you to factor in the price of acquisition, meaning you're going to have to give up Randall to get Karl-Anthony Towns. Maybe Deuce McBride to get Walker Kessler. And probably a handful of second-round picks and Precious Achiuwa and somebody else to get Jonas Valanciunas. Type the jersey number, 32, 24, 17, of the player you want to see wearing orange and blue coming up pretty soon. I'm fine with either of the three, But for now, I'll roll with either Walker Kessler or Jonas Valanciunas. I'd probably say Valanciunas just because you'd have to give up less, and I think that it would really diversify your center portfolio on this roster. Look, I don't hate a Karl-Anthony Towns trade either. If you watch this show, you understand that by now. I just think his skill, his ability to shoot it, and his ability to play the center position. Randall is a better player, in my opinion, but he's a power forward and a power forward through and through. Cat can play the 4. Cat can play the 5. Gives you more lineup versatility. And overall, I just think having a center out there that could shoot the basketball, it opens up your offense, and it could make the Knicks offense one of the best in the NBA. Make sure you are following me over on social media. I'm on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. Same handle on IG. Hit me up over there. Give me a follow, and let's talk some Knicks.